Was good. So a couple like revelations or like sayings that stand the test of time. And I'm gonna give you some literal experiences as to how we figured those ones out. Um, because I feel like if I'm not letting people know these things, we're holding people back, and you can't have that. All right, when you know something that apparently everybody around you just doesn't, and they're not catching on to what you're saying because they're not smart enough to understand yet. You gotta let them know. You gotta break down the basics, the foundation of how we got here. So that's what I'm doing. Number one, you can't change the rules after the game has started. So you you throw a bunch of people in jail for marijuana. All of a sudden you want to change the law. Well, we can do that. One, it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process. But let's say you get it done. All those people now that smoke marijuana, you have to let them smoke marijuana. You can't change the rules. You can't have it both ways. Which leads me on to number two. You can't have it both ways. You can't let the rule be applied to some people and then other people be like, nah, it's all good. Like you're going to jail, buddy. Like some people can smoke weed, but then other people go to jail for it. That's like, all right, that like right off the bat, like, why aren't the numbers adding up? Like, there's questions to be asked there. Like, what race aside, because we know that topic can get pretty political. But race aside, there's questions to be asked there, though, because the numbers don't add up. You got people who do go to jail for it and who don't. You got people who do get held accountable and people who don't. Inside, it's the same heart. Inside, it's the same blood. Now, that's not to say that everybody's the same. Not everybody's the same. We're all different, and we all, have our different capabilities. But this is something that really fucking pisses me off. Until like, until I'm pissed off, I'm irritated. I'm disappointed in people that they don't understand this. When you set a rule or a guideline, you have to you have to enforce it to everybody. You can't be like, oh, I'm scared to enforce it on that guy, or you know what, that guy's actually cooler than the other guy. I'll let him do it, but fuck this one. He's going to jail for it, or he's gonna be terminated from his job for it, or he's gonna do this or do that. Like, you can't have it two ways. That's two different ways. You like one way you want to apply the rules, the other way you don't. You can't have it that way. It's got to be one across the board. My case could rest here, but I got more. I got more. I got more. Number two, number three. My bad. That was number two. Number three. What goes around comes around. So, I mean, do I gotta explain this one? You give a friend a ride to school. 2 months later, he gets his driver's license. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna drive you to school this week." You're like, "Hey, I appreciate it, dog." What goes around comes around, and I've seen that with people. There's a good bit of people in my past, and we can name names, but I'm sure some of them know who they are. Where it was like that. We were giving each other's rides to school, and we just said the same thing to ourselves. We said, "Hey, yep, what goes around comes around, buddy." And you can look at it positive. Like like people like us, we looked at it positive growing up. We were like, look, we gotta have a positive outlook. We gotta have each other. Like, are we gonna split? Are we gonna split these thumbs or not? As Theo Von says, you know what I mean? Like, we really said that though. We were like, hey, are we gonna share this or not? Like, what's happening? What's the move? Because we didn't have an option. We lived in the middle of nowhere, and that was our only choice. People nowadays will see that as an opportunity to conflict. Like, what goes around comes around. All right, let me throw a bad name out there and let it come back around. Like no, like no, bro, no, that's not cool. Genuinely, I had good experiences with the people I worked with. There was just certain things that we didn't agree on, and that we weren't able to get past and work out. So we had to go separate ways. Um, I can give you examples. Uh, you know, first one that comes to mind, which you know I've done a lot of lives with him back in the day. Kai, we just don't agree on certain topics, and it's not to say that I wouldn't want to sit in the same room as him. I just I don't think he likes me as much. I really think he just kind of tolerates me. Whether that's true or not, like the, the actions speak. You know, when I'm around him, he just it's not good. It's always it's always conflict. But that's what I mean. Like, what goes around comes around. So when he does that, yeah, I'm gonna show him, like, hey, you do wrong too, and you probably have three other fingers pointing back at you, while me, I'm just kind of over here minding my business. I understood that. Like, I understood that at the time. Like, that's why I've you know written diss tracks about him in the past. You know, it, that's life, dude. What goes around comes around. You can't, like, look at me and be like, I'm mad at you. Like, okay, you got to be mad at everybody else then too. Like, you can, it's cool, you can be mad at me, but you also got to go around and be like, hey, I know what you did. I know what you did. You got to, because given what we know so far, you can't change the rules of the game. You can't have it two ways, and what goes around comes around. Now you have all three of those revelations here. You have all three of those revelations here, and you're like that's a lot, dude. You realize that shows you how powerful your actions are. So you're like, you do step a little cautious, bro, but you should. Yeah, when I say you should, I mean you should be stepping cautious. Like, you should wonder, like, if you're not, then you're not deep enough in the cave of knowledge to understand that you don't know the next step. You're leading the fucking cave. You're leading everybody behind you into the cave. You can't step into a hole and then have everybody else step into that same hole. You gotta step over it and live to tell people to step over it. And if you're not, then what's gonna happen? You're gonna step in that hole. Then what? Everybody you're leading steps in a hole? So that brings me on to revelation number 5. When you're leading the pack, you gotta be honest. And you gotta be willing to step cautious. And I mean, that's just plain old fact. If you have a certain level of arrogance, it's like, dude, I'm always fucking right. Like, that's okay. You can always be right. Like, if you actually speak the legitimate science facts, you can always be right, and that's okay. But if you're just being right to be right, and that's all. Like, you know, so don't be right to be right. Also, these are revelations that really stand the test of time. You're always gonna be able to like hold on to these. You're gonna be like having these in your head at like all times of the day. You're gonna be like, huh, I see this person's trying to have it two ways right now. And you're going to call it out and you're going to realize, hold on, that actually had an effect because that person was in the wrong and they know they were. Like, you're going to see these things. You take my advice and only success will follow. You look around, I mean, you have to work. You have to work for this, baby. You have to work for this one. You can't just you can't just wake up and decide that your fucking bedroom's a studio. You have to work for that one. But you see what I'm saying? You take my advice and it will get you far. Peace, guys.